Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the man who wants to get my boss out of the office, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, Tom.
God damn, that's a big bitch. We ended the last episode talking about the dangers of saying the quiet part loud. Here's an example of it when it works.
There you go.
He's just saying what we're all thinking, like any good 80s stand-up comedian.
Right.
It's also I particularly like that that outburst, because in order to do the gag, Murphy has to take a macho hit. Right? So I mean, so the joke is like tall women are freakish, which is, kind of would seem politically incorrect now. But also
Tony Scott even cuts to him getting up on his tippy toes.
Tippy toes. I have that exact note. Tippy toes. So he has to take a little bit of a hit in order to make the joke work, and I think that's a good example of self-effacing comedy for the sake of being funny.
There's that, plus there's an entire secondary thing that I really love about this movie, because Sylvester Stallone was supposed to be the star of Beverly Hills Cop.
That's what I hear.
And he was not. And he even changed the name to Axel Cobretti, which he then took to put into the movie Cobra, which Bridget Nielsen was in because she was married to Sylvester Stallone.
Right.
Which probably in some way got her into this movie.
I would imagine so, yeah.
All kinds of lovely connections between Stallone and our previous sequeldoms and this series that kind of just sort of delights me.
And she's the gateway to the kind of late 80s action cinema vibe of this whole movie, which to the best of my memory isn't there in the original. I mean, slightly with Steven Berkoff, but I think they double and even triple down on that.
What, on the 80s part of it?
Yeah, just and the sort of the rogues gallery of villains in this movie feels very much trying to up the ante from Steven Berkoff, because you have Jürgen Prochnow, you have Bridget Nielsen, you have Dean Stockwell, so you have this kind of triumvirate of villains, and they're we'll talk about it, but they're very much in the mold of what would eventually be Hans Gruber.
Yeah, right.
So, and this movie even looks forward to movies like Die Hard with a Vengeance, which are so far ahead that even the original hasn't been made yet. It's already looking forward to sequels of series that haven't even been made yet.
There you go. Well, we are talking about Beverly Hills Cop 2. It's a 1987 film with 49% on Rotten Tomatoes, Tom.
So I'm right.
And it is directed by Tony Scott. Yeah, you were right. The critics did not love this movie.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good enough movie that they were taking it down a peg just to take it down a peg.
Yeah,
mostly
just
because
to show who's boss.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think, certainly at that time, well, not even that time, now too, there's not a lot of room in a critic's heart for sequels.
Unless they can justify it to themselves by not thinking of it as a sequel. And I think that's a lot of where the bullshit terminology of reboot and spin-off and prequel and all that comes about, because it helps critics
soften the sting.
Yeah, because I mean, essentially they're now in a business where every second movie they're covering is a sequel.
Yeah, right.
So they've got to find some way to intellectually justify the fact that they're not film critics, they're sequel film critics.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of that involves taking it out on anything that they can identify as a kind of basic bitch sequel like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
right.
think. Because this is a basic bitch sequel, but
totally
none the worse for it.
Yeah, I think so. Right. That's one of the things I appreciate about this movie.
It has no pretensions to be otherwise.
Exactly. It's not trying to be anything else. It's a basic bitch sequel, shot and acted well.
Yeah. Shot it. Yeah, exactly. Shot, and they know what works,
mm-hmm.
and they're gonna double and triple down on all of that, and they're gonna up the ante of how cinematic everything is in the meantime.
Well, like we said, directed by Tony Scott. Maybe you've heard of him. I guess the thing I think of him as coming most on the scene with, even though he shot movies before this, is The Hunger, and then, of course, Top Gun.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's funny. I was saying in the ranking episode that sometimes Tony Scott is just too much Tony Scott for me. But even some of like his dumber movies I like Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
The Last Boy Scout, True Romance. I think it's when we get to Crimson Tide, he's starting to become more a full Tony Scott.
Yeah.
But when you get into Enemy of the States and Spy Game and Man on Fire, you know, we're full Tony Scott now. And then it was, I mean, he's got more movies until this, but Unstoppable was the last movie he did before he died. And I remember seeing it in the theater and actually liking that movie.
Yeah.
With Chris Pine and Denzel Washington, The Train That Won't Stop.
Was that the original title? The Train That Won't Stop.
The Train That Won't Stop. He did direct a remake of Pelham 123 as well.
He did. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely
and oddly, considering how much I love the original Pelham, I don't hate that his Pelham.
Yeah, I refuse to see it, but that's my own problem.
I'm sure.
I can't do it to myself. Yeah, and I think he is. I think he's notable for being a critically derided director.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of film snobs would have a problem admitting to enjoying one of his movies, or conceding that there's anything of value in them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting when you get collaborations like True Romance, because it
right.
seems purposeful to match, you know, the enfant terrible of American indie cinema with the king of 80s commercial cinema.
Yeah, right.
And what comes out is actually a really nice mix of their two styles. That
or aesthetics, right?
If you find Tarantino too much, then it again, it's like a baby laxative for that. And and likewise, if you think Tony Scott's too much, then you can focus on the
hipness or coolness
dialogue.
of
the characters. Right. So those are interesting. That's an interesting collaboration, and I think once you get over the embarrassment of liking a Tony Scott movie, you might actually like a Tony Scott movie.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, and he's had it's easy to forget his brother is Ridley Scott.
Yeah, right.
And they do work together in Hollywood. They Scott Free, the production company.
Yeah, right.
Produced, I want to say, what did they produce? What TV shows did they produce that were really big? Not House, is it?
I don't remember.
That's Brian.
Alias,
that's Brian
maybe.
But anyway, there are a lot of major productions there, and and then Ridley Scott keeps going, but of course Tony Scott took his own life, so it's that. And it's kind of interesting as well, because this is Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, and there's a similar story that even though they're not related, Don Simpson's gone, Jerry Bruckheimer's still around. So you've kind of got a weird, imbalanced production partnership thing going on.
Yeah, that is weird. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So
Well, this particular movie, it had a budget of $27 million, an opening weekend of $26.3 million. In the USA, $153.6 million, but in the world, $299.9 million. Just under the $300 million mark. And in 1987, I mean, that's a lot of money, especially against a $27 million budget.
Yeah. Well,
and he gets bang for his buck for $27 million, Tony Scott. This is a big movie.
Yeah. I think he makes certain stylistic choices that seem more expensive than they are.
Yeah, exactly.
They create the look of expensive production values without actually having to have any of those production values.
Sure.
And we'll talk about those on a case-by-case basis.
All right. Well, good old Gulf Western Paramount logo is what we're going to see first, right before we see the most smog-ridden shots of Los Angeles I've ever seen.
Yeah. So it begins with the sound of ticking over the Paramount logo, and I think the idea is that an entertainment bomb is about to go off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I got from it. And then
not just that, but that tick, 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 and the sort of percussive music that comes in after it, that is what is happening that is the music you're hearing during every single robbery in this movie.
Yes, yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. It's like a metronome for the robbery.
Totally.
And then you also get the addition of the 75th anniversary logo. And I say that so we can date the movie, but we can also date it by that establishing shot of a hazy sunset in Los Angeles County. Mm-hmm. That says 1987 as much as knowing that it's when Paramount was founded and that it's 75 years later. And then, we have, musically, we've got a prolonged synthesizer, which says to me, danger. And then you see the limo and you go, more danger. And then Bridget Nielsen comes out the limo.
I was just going to say, and you see Bridget Nielsen come out, and you think, nothing but danger.
Nothing but danger and sexy danger, because she looks like Marilyn Monroe. When she comes out of that limo.
She's hot in this movie, I'll tell you that much. I loved her when I first saw this movie.
And the beginning with the jewel heist, like, it's a really strong set piece to open the movie. It really sets the tone.
Yeah.
The music...
Plus it's like full, it's full cold open action. This is what you're getting for this one, everyone. Yeah, it's a heist.
It's telling you that this is a heist movie. Mm-hmm. It's kind of it's a neo-noir almost.
Almost, yeah.
Almost neo-noir-ish. But the music progressively just sounds like the music that they play in that Key and Peele sketch where they're jazzercise competitors. You know that one?
Yeah.
And then Clint Howard is there with the cue cards telling him that his wife's been in an accident but keep dancing. That's what the music becomes in this scene.
But it's one of the, it's funny because that's one of my notes for this movie. That will be the total opposite of my notes in the next movie. I love the music in this movie. And also this front scene is edited, I think, to within an inch of its life.
Well, I mean, it's almost a foolproof concept. Mm-hmm. The idea of a timed heist in a movie.
Sure.
It always works, right? Even in movies that don't work, like Hudson Hawk, the idea still works.
Whoa, 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 you shut your mouth.
I knew you'd take issue with that. The worst I'd say about it is it's a little confusingly shot, and maybe that is because it's a little too edited for its own good.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's one point where it looks like a salesperson shot, dies, and then he comes back to life just so someone could say, "Get down on the floor." So I don't know if
I didn't notice that.
I don't know if they're tracking continuity to the best of their abilities. But
see, I followed right along with it. That's one of the things that I really liked about it.
It might just be a byproduct of the heavy montage editing of the sequence.
But it's quick. I mean, it's that
too quick. It's too fucking quick.
It's that MTV Stallone Rocky 4 kind of. We're moving at a pace here, people. This is what the kids want.
But they take pace over mortality.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought it was very ironic that we just finished doing the Pink Panther series, and this movie begins with a jewel thief with a calling card.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
Are we ever gonna get away from this? With the A letter.
The A letter, sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's also when the scene was over, I thought, thinking of the Tarantino Scott connection. This is pretty much everything Quentin Tarantino left out of Reservoir Dogs. This is what you don't see in Reservoir Dogs is essentially this heist. And it kind of goes the way that heist goes in Reservoir Dogs as well.
Sure.
Yeah, and so it's a very strong opening. It really sets
it's heart pounding. Yeah, I mean, then you get the hard cut.
It also tells you what kind of a movie this is going to be, which is
absolutely
action crime. It's an action crime drama that featuring comedy.
Yeah.
You get the hard
cut to right after that. You get the hard cut to credits, and we're back in Detroit.
Yeah,
and you don't see a lot of credits of action movies of a man dressing himself, but Beverly Hills Cop 2,
Tony Scott movies. Yeah. I think that's the Tony Scott special. Because you've got this.
Yeah, maybe something in Domino.
Well, I associate him with sculpted male physiques and phallus shots, and we got both of them here. I tell you what, here's a question for you. Is there any light in a Tony Scott movie that does not come through either a blind,
I know,
some gauze, or a grate?
Yeah.
Those are your three options for what light comes through in a Tony Scott movie.
He's definitely one of those throw some dust in the light directors.
But this is what I mean. That it's like it's almost comical how that style of lighting, but it is kind of it's also effective.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because this is 1987. And it's not for a little while. It's later in the movie. But there's a point where we're at the gun club and we're in Dent's office. And I remember thinking, oh, that's X-Files lighting.
Yeah.
And it's that thing that's still just sort of still with us today. I couldn't remember. When I saw it here, I remember thinking to myself, man, that's pretty early for the X-Files lighting.
Not for Tony Scott. I mean, he pioneered it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's interesting that, Murphy is faceless for the first few shots. We want to have a big reveal of the legacy actor's face.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also a good instinct, a good choice to give him a delayed entrance like that. Even though we obviously know who it is.
Sure.
Unless they're really trying to pull a fast one on us and recast Eddie Murphy. And I guess in terms of upping the ante, this kind of noticeable increase from the original movie in flash, superficiality, consumption, going from Martin Brest to Tony Scott. So we get the suit, the car, the shades, all of them.
It reminded me of Rocky 3.
Yeah, absolutely. All of them are kind of designer consumer products.
But what I like about it too is it's sort of the idea behind it is. Well, now this man's been exposed to Beverly Hills, so when he comes back and does his undercover work, he wants to go upscale with his undercover work.
And we get our first impasse here because there's a photo of a legacy actor with other legacy actors, which is a picture of him on a fishing trip with Taggart and Rosewood, and I think Ronnie Cox is in that photo too.
Ronnie Cox is there too, Bogomil. Yeah. And this is what I was saving from our ranking episode that I wanted to talk about immediately was this was the strain of this movie. This movie, if they're going to get Eddie Murphy back to Beverly Hills, they had to create something. And the thing that they create is that all these cops have now become best friends, as opposed to he left, they never saw each other again.
Which is what would happen.
And they never talk.
Yeah.
And now that not only do they talk often, but they also go on fishing trips together because they're just that close. And it's funny because it's one of those things that I think an audience lets pass over them, water down their back kind of a way. Where, oh yeah, that makes sense. When in reality, it makes no sense. That's and it's like this movie and all the rest of the sequels hinge on that decision.
Yes, exactly.
That they're all the best of friends.
And we leave them at the, as far as, again, to the best of my recollection, Your Honor. We end Beverly Hills Cop and they're sort of begrudging acquaintances. Right?
Right.
Whereas whether in the time, obviously in the time between this movie and the last one, they've started to kind of live in each other's lives in a way that the ending of the last movie wouldn't suggest that they would. But yeah, it's exactly, they've got to write themselves out of this corner they got themselves in if they're going to do a sequel. They decided to send him back to Detroit. Now they need a way to get him back to Beverly Hills.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? It's not even necessary. Because Murphy's got a line later in the movie that says, a man put his job on the line for me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably enough to get him back. Just that, even if they had never spoken.
Mm-hmm.
But
you got to have your photograph.
But movies are movies, and you got to have a photograph.
You got to have a photograph to
and we're going to see that photograph a lot over the next 30 years.
We will. More than we see the physical actors sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you get a classic Tony Scott shot. A Tony Cott.
Careful.
Of his car spilling out into the street.
Right.
So that's another characteristic of Tony Scott's filmmaking. Filming machinery in wide angles. He films in the kind of ratios where you just start to question whether you have the right aspect ratio on your TV. Just for a second. And then oh no, it was just a particularly wide shot.
Yeah. I want to say, because that was a note I read, I'm pretty sure. This whole movie is shot in a different aspect ratio than the other movies.
It looks like
What's it normally? 183? And this is like 291 or something like that?
I believe it's THX 1138. I don't know but it's noticeably wider.
Yeah.
And this is what I think that's what I meant when saying it's more cinematic than the original. It takes advantage of the cinema, of the width of the cinema screen more than the original does. And yeah, I can do a preemptive credit check here, like, because I didn't know what was coming for this. I went in completely blind.
Okay.
So obviously I was interested in the impasse / red flag of Eddie Murphy co-writing the story.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was going to say.
That's usually not a good sign. Superman 4: Quest for Peace.
Because this is the first time he's credited this is the first time he's credited as a writer on a movie.
Yeah. So the involvement of legacy actors in sequels in the writing process usually isn't a good sign.
Wait, what was the... Sorry, I missed it. What was the other example you just said?
Superman 4: Quest for Peace.
Ooh, yeah, that's not good.
Which is also 1987.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't know...
two more vastly different movies
than these two?
Quest for Peace and this?
Not not in terms of sincerity, no. And just the cast list reminds me you can really rely on 80s movies to feature well-known American character actors with European art film actors.
Yeah, right.
That blend is a very 80s blend. Because it kind of goes like, it's like a mathematical sequence where you have to predict the next one. and then it's suddenly, you're going from like like Judge Reinhold to Jürgen Brockner, and you're like, whoa, that's not in the sequence. How did that happen?
For our technical nerds in the audience, I found it. This one's shot in the 2:39:1 aspect ratio on Super 35, as opposed to the others, which are all shot 1:85:1, for whatever that means.
It doesn't seem to have affected the budget, though, so I don't think it was the more expensive way of doing things. And weirdly, because it makes everything look... everything is kind of always in close-up.
Yeah,
you could probably hide a multitude of sins set-wise as well. So it probably is quite economical to shoot it that way. So, and, you've already got the light from the blinds obfuscating any background, so...
Of course, yes.
And then we get into the scene which is the most sort of Eddie Murphy / Beverly Hills Cop we've seen so far, where he goes into the bar. There's a lot of fast-talking, high-pitched comedy.
With Pastorelli?
Yeah, exactly. This is where the sidecar of comedy starts to come into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then
but it does still feel Eddie Murphy at full Eddie Murphy powers.
Yeah, but it's sort of at the tipping point of shtick.
Yeah,
I think.
I agree with that.
Compared to the original movie and 48 Hours and just his stand-up comedy in general and his SNL work, this is starting to feel like a recognizable Eddie Murphy shtick that he's pulling.
Yeah.
Through the
well, that was one of my notes for the movie, was that in general, I still think he's a really good actor in this movie.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see the veneer of Eddie Murphy, the movie star, in this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that definitely develops over these movies.
Mm-hmm.
The ending of Axel F, I think, is way more about Eddie Murphy than Axel Foley. But anyway, we'll get there.
Don't try to start building points early.
I'm pre-litigating.
Objection, Your Honor.
Like his daughter does in Axel F, when she goes into court to change counsel and calls for a motion. And the defense lawyer is like, she can't do that. They have the Beverly Hills Detroit disparity creates a narrative problem in the movie as well, because for the first act of the movie, they've got to keep alternating between Beverly Hills and Detroit, and they have to think of different ways to do this. And they originally start with intertitles on the screen telling you where we are.
Right.
And then they stop doing that, and then it's just like, okay, so what's the most iconic aspects of the places that we are? In Detroit, it's the Ford factory, and then we go over to the palm trees in Beverly Hills.
Palm trees, sure.
Yeah.
And the oil fields.
It creates a storytelling issue of having to edit between the two of them for the first kind of third of the movie.
No, but you don't need any of that. You show Bogomil running, you're in Beverly Hills. At least you're in Los Angeles.
I would say so, but they're obviously concerned about that being communicated to the audience clearly enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, and this is we re-meet, or if you're me, meet Paul Reiser, coming in hot from Aliens the year before.
Sure.
And
good stuff.
So everything's the same in Detroit, but the opposite is true in Beverly Hills, because the old chief's gone. Most of the cops have been fired.
And Bogomil is the chief.
So we're kind of... there's a sort of baked-in nostalgia already for what once was.
Yeah.
That's hanging over this sequel, which both hurts and boosts this movie. Right? It's kind of like it's giving you lots to play off dramatically, but at the same time, you're making the audience think about what's not there.
What was not there, right? Yeah.
And it's the double bind of all sequels. It's what Steven Spielberg talked about in relation to The Lost World, like having the scene in The Lost World where they they look at the sort of the ruins of Jurassic Park, and he says that nostalgia kind of it hurts, like it's there to placate the audience, but it's going to remind them that this is not that movie. Yeah. So you're in a double bind, and I think I feel that same double bind here. And it's interesting, like, so I can't remember how much of this is in the original Beverly Hills Cop, probably quite a bit, but certainly by 87, we're comfortable kind of showing bosses within bosses and the whole political structure of the police force, the relationship between captains and chiefs and the mayor.
Yeah.
And this is just like a post-Hill Street Blues idea of police drama that is being expressed here, and we're throwing it off casually enough that it's obviously expected of any police drama now, is that it's not just one detective and or a cop on the beat. It's got to be the whole sort of system under a microscope. This
could be a political disaster for the mayor here.
Yeah.
Everybody exactly. Get that?
And it just reminds me, what the 80s did with the police drama shaped it for decades to come, right? All the way through to, like, The Wire.
Yeah.
We're still seeing that. Law and Order and The Wire,
Sure.
They still have that sense of interconnected parts of the legal system. That they just throw off casually here, like it's normal, which tells me that it's what people expect police drama to be now.
Yeah. Well, I guess I there's that, but I was also kind of struck by how much exposition we're dealing with at the front of this movie.
Yeah.
We already talked about the picture, so now we know that they're all friends. Bogomil calls Eddie Murphy, he's got to cancel the fishing trip. But then on top of that, you have Bogomil. He's got clippings. He's got red mud on his shoes. He's clearly working on some kind of case that is befuddling him.
Yeah.
And Eddie Murphy's got his upscale undercover work going on while Taggart and Rosewood are talking to Bogomil. And then that's when they're letting you know everybody's been fired. This guy's an asshole.
Yeah.
We're the only ones that are left. I mean, they're really dispatching with a lot of... But it's all super quick.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
We're getting all of this out of the way, and then we'll start our story, I promise.
Yeah, and, they start their story with a bang, because they kind of have to do something to kind of upturn the apple cart at this point.
Yeah.
And they do it by shooting a major legacy character.
Yeah.
We might believe in the moment that he actually dies as well.
Yeah.
So they're stimulating interest within a sequel by kind of taking these legacy characters that you're attached to and kind of fucking with your attachment.
Emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and it's that I wrote down, it's a very much a horror technique that they've imported here. This is like Ronnie Cox is the final girl who survives through the first act of the sequel and then gets knocked off. So
I mean, they really leave him as a bloody lump in the grass there.
Yeah. Well, and they need something that drastic as the trigger for Axel Foley to
get Eddie Murphy back into Beverly Hills, also to hook us in as the audience.
Yeah. So they need something explosive, and we get an explosion from the barrel of a gun, and Ronnie Cox is the sacrificial lamb for the movie. He gets to take a movie off, which every one of the characters seems to do in turn throughout these sequels as well. Some of them get literally the whole movie off and don't appear. Ronnie Cox, Rosewood, and Taggart. They each get either all a movie or most of a movie off in these three sequels. There's very much a rota system going on between these three supporting characters. And then we get another characteristic that we've seen in a lot of sequels of this era, where we saw this with Die Hard 2, Die Harder. The main character of the original is now famous in the world of the film. So when Axel gets to LA, he's a celebrity at the police station. even the receptionist knows who he is.
Even just when he calls, on the phone, he says, "This is Axel Foley." "Oh, you mean the one?" "Yeah, that one."
Even the criminals in Detroit are starting to cotton on to him.
Yes. And what do you think of that, by the way, with the guy from the first movie?
Loved that callback, because it's
to me is a great use of...
So clever.
I just think, and it's funny too, because he's also dressed up like Eddie Murphy. It's like he's moved up a few levels in his criminal world as well, which I think is just hysterical.
They're playing off what the ramifications of that set piece from the original movie would be. Yeah, in terms of Axel being able to do his job in Detroit, which, by the way, is something that Axel F hasn't even thought about. But not only have they thought about it here, they've made a really great moment out of it, and it leads to a lot of really good comedy, because yes, some of Eddie Murphy's acting tends towards shtick, but there's an acting moment in this scene. It's when he starts to talk about where he starts to he tries to turn it on.
Why can't I check him if he's not a cop?
Why can't I frisk him? And he does this amazing thing with his eyes where he kind of turns into Stevie Wonder for a moment. His eyes start to go from side to side. Why can't I frisk him? Why can't I frisk him? And it just, I think there are these moments of genius of comic performance in the movies, and they're few and far between, to be fair, in these sequels, but there's always potential for them to happen. And this is a great example of that.
I'm glad you liked that, because I was worried it might be something you didn't like.
No,
I think one of my favorite things.
It's really smart, and another sequel would forget that ever happened.
Yeah, right.
I think that, the subsequent two sequels, not just Axel F, kind of forget.
It's the guy I told you about with the truck of cigarettes. Told the cops he was from Buffalo.
Because there's some, there's plenty that's established about the characters that not only doesn't get followed up on in the next two sequels, but is actively contradicted. So the fact that they're addressing the idea that it might harm his profile as an undercover cop to have such a memorable car chase
incident
or truck chase in his in recent memory. So I liked it a lot. And more upping the ante, they goes to LA by plane. I think he drives there in the original movie. Is that?
Yes, he does.
Is that right? Yeah. So already it's an upgrade, right? Everything gets an upgrade in this movie. That's Tony Scott's job.
But he's got to steal the money from his boss.
Yeah. And he also does something that reminded me a lot of Temple of Doom, where he gets into his Axel Foley costume about a third of the 20 minutes into the movie,
right? With his coat and his Mumford shirt, his
Detroit's Lion Letterman jacket. So it's like, oh, he's got his Axel Foley costume on. And we have a series of shots that reintroduce us to Beverly Hills, and I gotta say, this is where content and style match up really well, because I can imagine a kind of a tourist film of Beverly Hills directed by Tony Scott. I think he'd be the perfect person to do that, because it's just all tourist hardware friendly shots of Beverly Hills. Yeah, because Tony Scott's commercial sense is just so heightened. It's like he's giving you the clean version of Beverly Hills here,
right?
In these shots.
I want to bring this up because it'll be important for the next movie. Because before we get to the 80s kind of montage, I think he stops at the hospital first, right? He sees Jan, Bogomil's daughter. And there's that moment where he's talking. It's a real simple moment, but simple moments are sometimes the hardest thing for an actor to do. And he tells Rosewood and Taggart that he's going to talk to Jan, and he says, I'm going to, I don't know, just see. And it's like just one of those reflexive things where his hand comes up in the air and it's saying, like, what do you do? This guy's in a coma, like, but I'm, and it was such an honest acting moment that I really appreciated. where I thought to myself, he can still fucking act. It reminded me of 48 Hours Eddie Murphy in that one moment.
Yeah.
And even when he was on the phone in Detroit, when he's waiting for the hospital, just waiting, that moment where you don't know what's going on. You don't even know if this person's alive. There are good acting moments. So I'm going to bring it up now so I can bring it up later.
Well, it's good acting moments, but there's still life behind his eyes.
Exactly.
Like he's doing straight acting.
Right.
He's doing a serious moment, but he's not. It's not seriousness because the joy is gone. It's seriousness because it's appropriate to the scene he's playing. And then we get to this movie's version of the hotel scam,
Beverly Palm Hotel.
Yeah, where he
It's
movie,
the building con. It's the house.
Yeah, it's
con.
a building inspector scam. So, we need an accommodation scan for each movie. Although this is the last time in the series we even care about this device, but
yeah,
there's two in a row because they're like, okay, so what's kind of the same as him skipping out on the hotel bill, but different. Right. And this is he cons an entire construction crew into vacating a luxury house while he's in LA.
It's not supposed to be any right corners.
Yeah, so it's same and different enough to do the job necessary.
Yeah, and well, let's be honest too, because that's just sort of, I mean, it happens in the first movie as well, but in here it's a runner.
Yeah,
it's an honest to God runner. He's got different cons for different.
Oh
things
yeah. In the original,
in
the original it kind of creeps up on you, right? You sort of like you're sort of. As the movie starts to end, you think, how's he going to pay this hotel bill? And then, of course, he comes up with a way of skipping out on the bill by saying it was police business.
Well, Taggart just says the Beverly Hills Police Department's going to take care of it.
Yeah, we're in the peak era of product placement. We got a scene at the police station. There's a Coke can visible.
Mm-hmm.
They make a
while he's looking at letters and bullets.
Yeah, and it's kind of like they kind of break up the police procedural with the character comedy. So
the Johnny Wishbone.
We have a scene that's dedicated to just pure detective work. And then immediately afterwards, an extended scene where he's doing a piece of character comedy.
Yeah.
To an unsuspecting straight man. So, but it's like the movie just like switches gears abruptly between.
But it does it pretty fluidly.
Yeah, well, it's playing both sides of this movie. It's allowing space for both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are kind of segregated, but they work fine in the same scene as well.
Yeah. And
I wrote down the line that you previously mentioned about man put his neck on the line for me. So. The story is it's an aftermath sequel. This is what I mean about enough time has passed that we know how to do certain kinds of sequels, like the aftermath sequel, where the emotional ramifications of the previous movie become the story for the next movie.
Yeah,
Rocky II style.
All right. Well, we got a good start, and we're about to go to the gun club. Why don't we take a break?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to find out if you've done any research about whether this is a real club or only exists in the mind of Tony Scott.
Very good, then.
We get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day, you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable.
They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They'll try new beers. They'll tell you about beers. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here discussing Beverly Hills Cop 2, the 1987 movie directed by Tony Scott. All right, on our way out, Tom, we were talking about the Beverly Hills Gun Club. And I remember looking it up at one point and seeing that it was completely fabricated. And then I just looked it up, and all of a sudden, a Beverly Hills Guns came up. But it seemed to be a gun store.
Okay. Well, it's called the Beverly Hills Shooting Club.
That's true.
If that helps. And my suspicion is it's completely fabricated, but I'll also buy that someone has created an institution in tribute to this fictional gun club.
Right. I don't know, there's just something... I love the idea of effete people with handguns.
Yeah.
In Beverly Hills. That's very funny to me.
It is, yeah. And how casually Taggart kind of throws off that piece of information as well. Oh,
so
yeah.
that's the thing that gets me.
I know that guy. That guy works at the Beverly Hills.
So we have
Club.
these bullets, whatever they were, 44 Magnum cut to fit a something or other.
Yeah.
And I just love that it takes one officer from Detroit to just mention, come on, how many people in this town could do this kind of work? Oh, yeah, that guy from the gun club.
Yeah.
Taggart seems to know. But like nothing in Taggart's police brain says,
no,
hey, we should follow up on this.
And also, I think it's a kind of crossed wire because, Axel's talking about Huggy Bear, whereas Taggart's thinking of, he's thinking of some kind of dueling Southern gentleman.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's cross wires, but they get to the same. The point is made and. We get to the next stage of the procedural, which is to go to we get
to the next stage. And it's funny because all of these sequels have really dumb criminals making dumb mistakes.
Yes.
Providing all your guns for your shooting of the jewelry store from the gun place you work at. Well, that's not smart. And we can get to Beverly Hills Cop 3 and Axel F. later.
I know exactly what rapping choice you're talking about. That gives them away in the next movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we re-meet Bridget Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
So we know we're onto something when she turns up.
Sure.
And Eddie Murphy has this extended bit with the vitamins.
Yeah. We've got another con, and it's the running gag.
And it's they definitely multiply the number of characters Murphy is pretending to be other than himself in the movie. But it works. It gets us from A to B.
You know who's always good? Way. The people that are playing opposite of him.
Yeah, that's a real...
These no-name actors that you've never seen in anything else are all doing great.
Yeah, and it's one of the few nice things I'd say about Axel F is that he's still able to find those people.
Yeah.
Here and there in an industry that doesn't really produce those people anymore.
Right.
And yet he still manages to find them. Or maybe it's him. Maybe it's maybe, he's kind of pseudo-directing the scene so it works. I don't know.
Maybe.
But it happens in all of these movies, really.
Yeah.
And this is very when we get to we go into the back room and Jürgen Brockner is there, and this is very proto Die Hard with the Germanic villain.
Sure.
Getting the guy from Das Boot.
Absolutely.
Partly riffing off, he's a surrogate for Steven Berkoff, but it's also more evidence of what we talked about when we discussed the Die Hard movies, which actually on Patreon, so this is probably news to the free listeners. But we talked about how, after the fall of the as the Berlin Wall was falling, and the Russia couldn't be the big bad anymore. You had to look into the pre-Cold War era for America's enemies, and you go immediately to Germany, and they go to Germany and Japan, and here we're likewise going back to Germany.
Germany.
Yeah. It's taking us back to Germany. So I thought that this was another sign. This was verification that is where villains were going culturally.
Absolutely.
In American action cinema.
But I also like that they include Dean Stockwell, because what a great dumb, sleazy guy he can play.
Well, I was watching another movie recently where he played To Live and Die in L.A., which...
it's on my list. I saw it come up on Prime, and I was going to rewatch that.
He plays the villain's lawyer in that as well. He plays Willem Dafoe's lawyer in that. So it's essentially the same part. And I think this movie owes a lot to Live and Die in L.A. in terms of its look and content.
Actually. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Even the next movie does, because it's about money laundering.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what To Live and Die in LA is about. Yeah, but it's also, the other thing it reminded me of was Batman 66, because when they're all in a room together, it's like the Batman movie, the Adam West Batman movie, where you get the Penguin, the Joker, the Riddler, and Catwoman all working together. And that's to me what it felt like. God, Dean Stockwell would have been a great Penguin, I think.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
That man just ruled the 80s. We don't talk about him enough because he's in this, he's in To Live and Die in LA, he's in Dune, he's in Paris, Texas, he's in Blue Velvet.
Well, plus
Quantum Leap.
Quantum Leap, thank you.
Which started in the 80s, went into the early 90s.
Yeah. Good stuff.
There's a moment, speaking of police procedurals, there's a moment here where he starts following the trail of the specific dirt on Ronnie Cox's shoes, which felt like an overture of CSI, which was produced by Jerry Bruckheimer. Because CSI is just all of that. It's all like they find a piece of dirt or a piece of grass or a flower, and it only grows in one place in Las Vegas, and that's how they find out who the murderer is every single time. So it's just the same shtick.
I always like that, the way they portray Foley. He's so savvy as a detective that even as he's scratching his nose, you can, it's like his bit about ghosts. Why don't white people just leave the house when there are ghosts there? Because they hear a sound. And he says that's peculiar. And he looks at that red dirt like, that's peculiar. Let me go check out the dirt in the front. No, that's not red dirt. I'm going to remember this red dirt, I tell you.
Another hangover from Murphy's stand-up routine is the gay voice.
Yeah.
Which got him in the most trouble. Whenever I hear him do the gay voice, I kind of think it's less homophobia, more the lady doth protest too much. Like, I think he's, at the very least, bi-curious, given some of the situations he's been found in.
Well,
over the years.
It's not for us to say, sir. Don't get us in any more legal trouble.
But I always think, it always has a flavor of who are you kidding when he does that, when he does that voice. So I don't find it as offensive as other people find it, because I think he's just, it's just self-hating.
One of the tribe.
I think it's self-hating by curiousness coming out as aggression. Speaking of aggression, when we get to that strip club, those are some angry strippers. Is that what stripping was like in the 80s?
My note was, that man on the stripping pole has great tits.
You criticize me for saying Eddie Murphy might be gay, and then you make that comment. Yeah, this dancing is too intense. I couldn't get aroused by what they're doing up there.
It's so funny.
It's counterproductive to sexual arousal as far as I'm concerned. They just look angry and pissed.
Yeah, so funny.
And, you know, you're a great pair of tits, but it takes the edge off when you have to look at that dancing around them. Plus the ripped abs, which is not a look I can say it as a personal choice. It's not a look I care for on a woman.
All right.
You know, each to their own. All.
Yes, of course.
But personally, I don't care for it. Interesting pick of Gerald Ford as the running gag in this scene, where they convince everyone in the club that Taggart is Gerald Ford.
That's funny to me.
Oh, it's funny, but it's just an interesting pick because of the history of Saturday Night Live mocking Gerald Ford in its early years. I wonder if it's a tribute to that. But it's just such an odd, like, I don't know. Does it work in '87 that people would have already forgotten what Gerald Ford looks like?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
I like that the one maitre d' says he doesn't look like Gerald Ford.
but doesn't he talk around that and says it's because you've never seen him like in
you've
the
never
flesh
seen him
out of context.
Live and in person, not on TV.
Yeah. But once again, another sequel that we've watched that features Gerald Ford,
right?
In some fashion or other. That's at least two now. Hot Shots Part 2 and this. I'm sure we've had another one. Oh, of course, Pink Panther Strikes Again.
Oh my goodness.
He's not named as Gerald Ford, but the guy that John Randolph's playing is obviously supposed to be Gerald Ford. Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier in regards to the jewel heist, but fast cutting and slow motion are the kind of two poles of Tony Scott's directorial eye. That's his two directorial eyes: fast cutting, slow motion. It's a ballet of the two. Always.
Well, when you get to them coming out of the club and Eddie Murphy seeing the car and gun, cut to slow motion, cut to chasing around the corner into a parking lot, cut to the slow motion leap of Eddie Murphy over the trunk of a car, cut to the fast motion of it going in reverse. I mean, it's a real back and forth throughout the whole scene.
It's two gears.
It's Tony Scott's deal.
He's got the gear. It's his gear stick. Like on one side it says fast motion, and fast cutting. The other one it says slow motion.
You never know which one is his pole position. But it's funny too because when that car rounds the corner and you hear the crash. And then you see the upturned electrical pole.
Yeah.
Like nothing has ever looked more like a dressed set to me, even the first time I saw it, than that shot, that scene.
Mm-hmm.
It's very funny to me. But I also, we haven't talked about him yet, but I really, really like Alan Greenfield as Lutz in this movie. He really makes me laugh as a bully asshole.
Yeah.
As that chief of police.
He's full on. I'm trying to think where else have we seen that actor?
Well, I remember him from Let It Ride.
That's not what I remember him from.
I'm sure you do not.
A very similar role.
Yeah.
Let me pull. You carry on. I'll pull him up.
At any rate, I just. This is where Axel kind of comes up with his plan, because he's going to tell him to call Detroit, to call Inspector Todd, and he's going to get Jeffrey on the case of getting Todd the fuck out of the office.
Right.
I like that it ends just with Jeffrey saying, "Am I going to get in trouble?" Paul Reiser can play a really great, aloof kind of dummy well.
Yeah. He doesn't. Wait, so Diner is Detroit, right?
No, it's Baltimore.
Isn't that set in Detroit? Oh, okay. Because he doesn't feel very Detroit to me.
Oh.
But then when you have Todd in the scene, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter at all.
He's got enough Detroit for all of us.
Yeah. You know, he actually ran for mayor, and who was that mayor that got... Yeah. He lost to is it Kirkpatrick? Who's the guy that got ousted for taking bribes or something? Anyway, he lost to that guy.
You've got to narrow it down, I'm afraid. That sounds like most American mayors. Including Quimby. Old Quimby. Wow, so he ran for mayor in Detroit.
Because, I mean, he was an actual
he looks
police
like
officer.
He already looks like the mayor of Detroit. Like,
yeah.
if you hadn't seen the Beverly Hills Cop movies and you showed a picture of this guy, you'd be like, is that the mayor of Detroit? Yeah, it looks like the mayor of Detroit to me. Of course, I don't know if this gets noticed by non-sequel specialists, but I can't help notice that Rambo First Blood Part 2 poster on Rosewood's.
It's not the first time we're going to see it either.
No, and that's one of my proposed tweaks for when we get to Axel F. But I mean, it's a joke that works on a lot of different levels. When you think about this, the First Blood Part 2 is also a clunky sequel that should never have been made to a popular early 80s property. So I'm really glad that they strategically put that there. It's interesting as well because I don't even know if Tony Scott or the people behind this movie understand what is meant by an old street cop trick. The door opening thing is just forensic science, and that's what CSI is all about. So it's kind of, again, it feels like, Taggart doesn't understand what he means by a guy on the street, but also Tony Scott doesn't understand what Foley means by an old street cop trick. That's just science that we're talking about here.
Well, I like the idea too of it being a street cop trick. Like, what did you just run out of that powder that they use for fingerprints? What?
Yeah.
What's the deal exactly?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, it's Detroit's. It's a poor economy. They probably don't have the budget for fingerprint. They probably have to do it with donuts.
I saw a funny note on IMDb too that complained about them trying to find the dick on the turtle because of the undershell of the turtle, which was completely flat. It was clear that was a female turtle, and because male turtles have a concaved undershell.
Wouldn't that be the joke then?
Should be, but it's not.
Oh. Well, it might be.
I don't think it's on purpose.
Okay. Fair enough. That might be too much reading in. I like the police computer that they go to. It's interesting. Like, I'm always fascinated by representations of computers in 80s movies. And by 87, you have a sense that the people putting computers in movies actually know what computers are and how to use them. Because, of course, everything up until 1985 is just a video game. That's all we know how to represent computers as. But now it's like, no, it's like a real database. This looks like my old PC. By 1987, I think the movie industry is catching up with what computers actually look like in real-world situations, not just, Robert... what's his name? What's his name from Superman 3?
Oh, I won't remember. Gus
the villain.
Something.
Yeah, no, that's Richard Pryor, but the
the other
actor.
Guy.
What's his? I can't remember his name. Robert
Vaughn.
Vaughn, yes, Robert Vaughn, and playing Space Invaders with Superman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Playing Superman the video game.
That's back on Max right now, and I saw it the other day, and I was thinking, ooh, I think I gotta watch Superman 3. Haven't watched it since we did it for the podcast.
Wow. Oh, I've seen it several times since then. and this will date the podcast, but I think we're a few days after the death of Gene Hackman was announced, and I've watched nothing but Gene Hackman movies since that happened. And I ended up rewatching Superman the movie. I know where and related to that is where I know Alan Garfield from, who plays Lutz. The Conversation. He plays the sleazy salesman.
Oh, you're right.
Who puts the mic'd pen in his pocket and listens in on his conversation with one of the ladies. So
that's great.
That's very much the same kind of dick face.
Good stuff
there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we should save this for when we do it on Patreon, but is Judge Reinhold in the original Beverly Hills Cop as obsessed with guns as he is in this movie?
No, it seems as though his experience in Beverly Hills Cop informed what's happening here.
You keep saying that, so I'm wondering, is this headcanon? Because nothing in the movie tells us that.
Maybe.
You're reading in character arcs where there may not be character arcs.
There's no part of Billy in the original Beverly Hills Cop that seems like he's the guy with that many guns. He's got his one little snub-nosed pistol that he's waving around with authority in Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
But he's attacked with machine guns, and I think that informed what's going on here.
Oh, okay. All right. I buy it. I was also wondering whether, and Tony Scott doesn't often get credited with self-awareness, but I'm wondering whether having Judge Reinhold as this kind of parody of action movie-loving masculinity is their way of sort of poking fun at themselves for what, Tony Scott taking over the mantle of director is doing for the series, maybe. But that might be too much self-awareness on everyone's behalf there.
I mean, it's so funny, too, because it happens several times in these sequels. Could you imagine being a woman, going on a date with Billy, and then walking into this apartment?
Right, yeah.
Just filled wall to wall with plants. But if you ever got to that bedroom, with all the guns on the back of the door...
And that's what interested me.
I'd be out of there so quick.
Because he's continually called out on it by both Foley and Taggart.
Yeah.
And that's what made me think that, maybe they're throwing some shade at the target audience of this movie, guys who love action films.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be an interesting choice. I'm just interested in where the character development comes from, given that they completely abandon it in all of the next movie and most of Axel F as well.
Yeah.
There's only one moment that refers to it in Axel F.
Yeah.
As far as I can remember. And again, like this movie sections off its comedy and its action, and now we get an action sequence that's purely comic. This whole driving the like steamroller, is that what you would call it? That he's driving.
Steamroller?
What, Judge Reinhold, is it a crane? What's the big vehicle that he's driving?
Oh, I thought we were going back to the gun club there's not a lot that happens at the gun club. I guess it doesn't matter.
Okay. But he commandeers...
They find out that the depository is going to be...
Mm-hmm.
But I like the bit with the gum and the window, and then he says, "Give me a piece." And he's like, "I've only got one left." He goes, "Split it." None for you.
Yeah, because we're on our way. Is it what is it? Is it a steamroller, or what is it? A crane that he's driving?
No, he's in a cement truck.
Cement truck. That's the word I'm grappling. Yeah. That's the vehicle I'm grappling for.
But also before that is the fake phone call where Jeffrey, Paul Reiser tricks Todd out of the office, and then he comes back. I love that. All right, who tricked my ass?
That's another cognitive dissonance with Axel F. It's like Todd would have put a note in his file that says this guy was creeping around my office for no reason. Don't ever let him become chief. Before he died. In fact, I would have liked him
He died suddenly, Tom. He died suddenly.
I would have liked
his time to make that note.
Make sure they read the note. They read the note about your partner.
I have the total opposite view. I'll save it until we get there.
Okay.
Instead of trying to stockpile points, objection, Your Honor.
But anyway, it's notice the tone of it is kind of all comic, and each action
very
sequence
much so.
prior
Yeah,
to this has kind of been more comedy as the sidecar, action as the focus. But this switches it.
Well, not just that, but the one thing I noticed, this might be more of an '80s thing because, like, Billy is knocking citizens in their cars around quite a bit,
right? Mm-hmm.
And they could he's causing real damage and probably hurting real people.
Yeah.
And the movie itself is fairly cavalier about that.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't even stop to show us that it's just cans being knocked over, like in
exactly.
French Connections.
You don't have that A-Team moment of a guy getting out of the car, brushing off,
yeah,
fist shaking.
The car flies over a canyon, you see it explode, and then the next shot is a man dusting himself off.
Stupid A-Team!
The A-Team are like, we really shouldn't take on Highlanders. We should start focusing on people who are mortal.
But again, you get, this whole scene. I mean, one, I like Tony Scott does a funny thing where, because at first they're driving a cop car and Billy wrecks that cop car, right?
Yeah.
Like knocking into citizens and other cop cars. And then they have to run to the city depository. And on the way, he pulls out the .357 Magnum. So
yes,
gives Eddie Murphy the chance to get some Dirty Harry jokes in. But as they're running, they run past that cement truck.
Ah.
There's like an establishing shot of it. And then when they get to the front gate, they don't even realize that they're being robbed. But putting all that aside, what I really wanted to talk about is Tony Scott, once again, really good at filming action, because the robbery of the city deposit is fucking great. Blowing in through the roof and the precision with which they're, that back to the kind of thing we were talking about at the front of the movie, it always works, right? When it's done well.
Yeah. And
I love everything about Bridget Nielsen being in charge.
Yes. I kind of wish she was the big bad, to be honest, but
I literally had that same thought that I meant to bring up.
Might have been too much of a leap in 1987.
Yeah, I literally meant to bring that up as we were talking about when we first met Kane. Not Kane, who's Jurgen play? What's this guy's name?
I don't know. You carry
Dent.
On. I'll find
Maxwell out. Dent.
That sounds like a coffee.
Sounds like a
like a coffee maker.
Or a car salesman.
Dent. Yeah. Or a car salesman.
But I had the same thought, that wouldn't this movie even be a little bit better if she was just the main baddie?
Yeah, and this is I think I make the note later on about the late 80s was the period where the kind of trading illegal goods plots really got out of hand. We get this in The Living Daylights as well. Everyone has it's not just we're stealing jewels for the value of the jewels. It's like we're trading the jewels for this that is going to buy that, and we've got this operation going on, and you just can't follow it, and it's unnecessary, right? It's just because all we really care about is, are they going to get away with it or not? That's it.
We need a lot of cash so we can buy these guns, so we can take those guns to another country, so we can sell them for even more money than we bought them for.
Wait, is that the plot of this?
Yeah, that's the plot.
Because that's kind of what happened. I thought you were describing the plot of The Living Daylights. It's exactly the same there. It's like, we got to take it's the other way around, though. It's like we're taking the the drugs to buy. Wait, there's guns, opium, and diamonds.
There's opium. I know there's opium because he's hanging off the back of that plane.
Yeah. There's opium, diamonds, and weapons. Oh my.
Yeah. Lethal Weapon 2, another sequel, at least takes the time to call it the triangle trade and talks about the gold coins to the drugs.
Yeah. But anyway, I think part of the reason we're ramping up the comedy is that we're heading to the Playboy Mansion.
Sure.
Which is where you know, for all the shade that I'm going to throw at Axel F, this feels like primetime variety special version of Beverly Hills Cop in these scenes.
Yeah. It's the first time that Hugh Hefner is an actor in a movie.
Well, also, it's also hard to believe that he would care that this notorious arms dealer is at his party.
Sure.
Like, I think he must have insisted that he be represented as someone moral enough to say, "Hey, you
get out of here,
powerful man with a sketchy background. The Playboy Mansion is no place for you."
Right.
As if the Playboy Mansion isn't just full of fucking powerful people with sketchy backgrounds. And then,
what about Chris Rock, though?
Well, this is what I was going to mention. There's a, you know, if nothing else, this is a milestone in African American comedy, because he literally passes the keys of his car to Chris Rock as the valet, and the keys that he's passing are those to the Stand-Up Kingdom. This is a total passing of the gauntlet moment to his predecessor. You know, for to the just incredible. To a successor, it's incredible that moment is recorded on screen.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
And I believe historically that Chris Rock talks about it as Eddie Murphy specifically put him in the movie to give him his big break.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's exactly what it seems like. Off screen, on screen.
And Eddie Murphy's still doing his bits. He's got the pool cleaner bit. Again, another woman in that scene who's really good at that scene.
Well, and she's a Playboy bunny. She's a real, because she's listed in the credits as herself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So she must have been like a known. I don't know what. I don't want to use the word madam, but it seems like there's some kind of a, like, you're a Playboy bunny for a while and then you graduate.
She graduated
to not madam, but kind of like that same sort of thing.
It's like
the woman who's in charge of the women, basically.
It's like the coach of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders.
Right, if the Dallas cheerleaders were prostitutes. Not that the Playboy bunnies are necessarily prostitutes, but they might overlap with sex work. Let's say. But there's also, you know, speaking of the possibility of self-awareness in this movie, at one point in this scene, Judge Reinhold turns to the other characters and says, "What are we doing here?" And I'm like, this is what I'm asking as the viewer. Like, we've taken a titillation trip from the storyline. How is this going to factor into the story? So at least the characters on screen are asking the same question.
Well, there's also this added bit of, you know, when you look back to the first movie, so much play is given to we're on duty and we don't do anything, blah, 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 blah. And there's sort of like a halfway point between that in this movie. And then all of a sudden, when he says that line, he and Taggart have both taken the time to go get a beer. And they both open the beers just on duty while chasing cops, or rather chasing robbers.
While Ronnie Cox is in hospital, the mice will play.
Exactly right. All right. Well, we're kind of coming to it. Why don't we take one more break and then we'll come back?
Perfect time. My next note is about Gilbert Gottfried.
I was just gonna say that's what my next note is, and so I'd like a little break.
You always have to take a breath before you discuss Gilbert Gottfried, because he never does.
He never takes a breath. So we must, on his behalf. Do I have a treat for you? You need to
stay on target
and check out the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to...
stay on target.
Find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to...
stay on target.
That's the Sounds in Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Tom and I are here, finishing up with our favorite movie of the sequels in the Beverly Hills Cop series, Beverly Hills Cop 2. No parts, by the way, Tom.
No,
You put up parts, but it's
I
all...
did.
Yeah, no parts. 2, 3, no 4, Axel F.
The distinction I was thinking of is that it's Roman numeral 2 and 3,
Okay,
as opposed to the numbers 2 or 3.
correct.
And in my head, I'd turn that into part 2, part 3, which is there by implication, I would argue.
Yeah.
Goes to Norbit, Your Honor. You have to listen to the previous episode to get that joke. You also need to listen to the previous episode to know how we rank and declare for these movies. So
That was
listen
good.
to that episode.
Goes to Norbert.
Goes to Norbit, Your Honor.
Before we get to Sidney Bernstein, I mean, it's a small joke.
Is that
but
what Gilbert Gottfried's character's called? Why did he even bother giving him a name?
I know.
He's so Gilbert Gottfried. He might as well be like G. Gottfried on his name tag on the desk.
Yeah. There's a moment where they're working on the alphabet crime at the station, and Lutz is there. And at one point, Taggart says Putz to, I think his name was Bill, right? His little assistant.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "What did you say?" He says, "He called you a putz." "I didn't call you a putz. Came a putz. I called you a putz." And I love it when Lutz turns around and says, "He's right. Putz."
Yeah, I mean, we alluded to this pre-break, and by the way, I didn't mean to. I inadvertently made a tasteless joke about Gilbert Gottfried not breathing, given that he's dead, and that's not what I was talking about how relentless his comedy is.
Yes.
And we talked about this in, I think he was in House Party. He had a brief role in House Party 3, which is the other movie we've seen him in. Not that you'll remember that.
I do not. I was just gonna say. Sorry,
I could
wiped
see
it
the
from my
look
memory.
The blank look on your face. But yeah, he was in House Party 3.
Okay.
And we said, I think with that we said the same thing. He always comes in hot. There's not.
Yeah.
You don't get even a second to get used to the fact that Gilbert Gottfried is now in your movie. It's
I
all
like
or nothing.
the idea of Eddie Murphy liking comedians enough, to put them in his movies. And it's funny because I think I read on the IMDb notes that this scene is basically completely improvised between the two of them.
No.
And Gilbert Gottfried had no idea that Eddie Murphy was going to come in with parking tickets.
Oh.
And so just the idea of the bribe that he just came up with on his own, I think is hysterical. And it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, you said that he shouldn't even be called Sidney Bernstein. But when I watch this scene, I see a man being fully Gilbert Gottfried, but I still believe he's an accountant or lawyer.
Yeah.
So I give him that credit.
Yeah, and my note was the movie's kind of handed over to stand-up at this point. But I guess it's more like sketch comedy.
Yeah.
Improv sketch comedy as well. So, you'll know this better than I. What's the timeline of the Lethal Weapon movies? When does Lethal Weapon 2 come out in relation to
89.
This? Oh, so this is pre-Lethal Weapon 2, because these scenes, the way in which they're kind of like...
I think the first one is this same year. It's 87.
And the Joe Pesci character appears in the second one first.
Not only, but yeah, he's not in the first one.
He debuts in 2. Because Because I felt like they were having a lot of the same ideas about, as we go on with our sequels, we'll repopulate them with more and more comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Additions to the ensemble, and then eventually Chris Rock. So I did wonder about which came first, because it seemed like a very, very kind of... The idea of the Sidney Bernstein character seemed to me to kind of riff on Joe Pesci, but it's obviously the other way around.
Yeah, right. There's one line that he uses that I still use. If I have to count out two things, to this day, I still like to say, here's one, here's two. They're real crisp.
At one point, doesn't he just shout, bitch?
Yeah.
Into the phone?
Because it's his wife's car that got all the tickets.
Oh, he's got, bitch!
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, R.I.P. And then, we get a nice piece of Stupid People ADR where he's on the phone Axel's on the phone to Jan in the hospital. Yeah. I don't think she's in the hospital. And while they cut from one shot to the other on the phone call, the cut is covered by the line, he's up and walking around. So clearly when they filmed that scene, they didn't know which way it was going to go, but
yeah,
they must have made that decision later that whether he was going to survive or not. Maybe
that he would survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's going to supply the important information about the racetrack and the heavy insurance on the racetrack, which is E&F, because it's whatever it is, Elysian Fields or whatever.
And I think this is a great set piece because
it
has vibes of film noir, heist movies, gangster movies. You're thinking of Stanley Kubrick's The Killing,
totally.
The Grifters. Although The Grifters hasn't come out yet, has it?
No, it's 90, I think.
But it's your classic noir setting, the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's kind of embedding this crime film in some Hollywood traditions. And I got to give credit to Tony Scott. He there's visual invention in this scene because he's got that jockey POV.
I can't believe it. I was just going to say that exact same thing.
Which
the jockey POV, I think, is, because it reminds me of Luck, the show they had to stop making.
I thought, well, yes.
It's like killed too many horses.
David Milch didn't want CGI horses, so the show had to end. Because he killed, 20 horses in the first episode or something like that.
All right, we're done making this show, everyone.
Those numbers may be exaggerated.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think this really works, and again, it captures that the dilemma of Tony Scott, that yes, it's a silly idea, but it does work visually. Like it does, but it's a silly. When you sit back and think about it, it's a silly idea seeing the horse from the point of view of the jockey. But it does.
But there's something within
the visual fabric of the scene.
Right, the visual fabric. Yeah. Like there's something within the robbery because it adds a pulse pounding kind of component to the robbery itself, and the editing behind it. It's something that just makes you kind of push forward in a way in your seat a little bit.
Yeah, it gives the scene momentum.
Yeah.
And again, these are all timed heists, aren't they? They're all tied to the clock.
Right.
So it gets that idea across as well.
Oh, we haven't really given this play, but the rule of 3 comes up in this movie because Eddie Murphy 3 times mentions to the boys that he wasn't always a cop and broke a rule or law too. And one of them is on the way to the racetrack when he figures out the last alphabet crime.
Yeah.
And that it's signed Carlos. So they figure out that it's Kane. I love how clueless all the cops except Eddie Murphy are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I guess that's sort of riffing on the last movie and, the difference between streetwise and street foolish policing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh, and something else they do in this scene, which is again is imported from horror movies, the false ending. So we think that they found that they've exposed the villain, they've caught the bad guy, and it seems to me to be the classic sort of slasher movie. Oh, he's dead. Wait, no, he's not. Kind of moment.
Well, we know that they don't have the right guy because.
Well, we also know that Jason's gonna get up and try and stab someone. Which is also a Paramount movie. That's what they're thinking of. The Final Friday. We all know. Or the Final Chapter.
Final Chapter.
The one? Final Chapter. Final Friday.
You're thinking of Final Destination.
That movie hasn't even been made yet, and there's no turd worms to be seen in this movie. And this is the point at which I began to I began to convince myself that rather than self-awareness about action movies, Rosewood's gun fetish is just a way to get bigger and bigger guns into the finale.
Into the movie, right, yeah.
And him having enough knowledge to be able to use like rocket launchers and
to use a bazooka, right?
Yeah.
But first, Eddie Murphy's got to notice that red mud.
Yeah.
I love when small clues.
It's again a very CSI moment.
Yeah.
William Peterson will be pulling the same shit 20 years from now. And yeah, I love that the final showdown is in this pigeon-infested warehouse.
Yeah, you'd think Ang Lee was involved, or no? Who does the doves? John Woo.
Yeah. I thought for a second there was an Ang Lee film I hadn't seen. Although I haven't seen anything from The Tiger onwards.
Ooh.
Life of Pi and the weird movie he made, which is kind of like a shot on a cell phone about a veteran who goes to a sports event.
Wow.
Well, I didn't see Life of Pi because there's only.
Oh no! Wait, I'm actually still thinking John Woo, because he did that Silent Night.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's fucking terrible. God, what a bad movie. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that.
And the pigeons. I don't.
Yes.
The doves. That's more of a Paddington add-on. Well, and again, like I'm thinking of obviously we've picked these series to get away from slasher movies, but I thought that this is a great slasher movie setting. This pigeon-infested warehouse.
Absolutely.
And for all of Tony Scott's flash and superficiality, like he picks kind of quite a rugged location to end the movie in. Filming
It's a rugged location, but there are moments within it. You can find glaring mistakes within this scene.
I believe it.
That are interesting when the firefight first starts and our heroes jump behind these barrels.
Yeah.
There's a medium range shot where in the foreground, like in front of us, you could kind of see the baddies' backs all shooting at them. And you see all three of them get up, and you see Eddie, who's supposed to be Eddie Murphy, but I don't think is Eddie Murphy.
John Landis, maybe?
Maybe John Landis. He gets up and points his gun, and he shoots it 3 times, but the only reason you know that is because the gun goes up and down 3 times, but there's no muzzle flash, there's no bullet coming out, there's nothing there. It's very funny to watch.
Does he go pew 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 with his mouth?
He probably did. Like Star Wars style.
Uh-huh. You have to stop Ewan McGregor. You have to stop
I think it was Ewan McGregor, right? He would make the noise. Yeah.
Swoosh, 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 whenever he was. Yeah, you don't need to do that. We have something.
We'll add that. Thank you. But overall, except for those one quibbles, it's funny because it's a full-on action scene, but we're still kind of devoted to the comedy, too. You've got the yo baby moment before the shootout really starts, but also Rosewood with that rocket launcher. You know, busting it open and saying, wow, and reading the directions and then shooting the missile into the truck. That's a comedic beat. And so they're keeping the comedy and the horror together all in one moment.
Yeah.
Fairly fluidly, too.
Yeah. This, and it's kind of, because I'd never seen this before, but I caught moments of it on TV over the years. And I vividly remember this scene where he's rolling around in the plastic wrap. It's like a kind of transparent canvas that he's rolling around in, and I had a vivid memory of that moment where Bridget Nielsen sets upon him, and he's kind of coming out of the plastic canvas.
Oh yeah.
So it's you know, it's effective imagery because I've carried it for, I don't know,
many years.
Yeah.
Without having seen the whole movie.
Without having seen the whole movie, I actually thought it was the beginning of the movie, not the end. But there you go.
She's a good baddie too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we know this from Rocky IV as well.
Sure.
And Creed 2.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she. Well, no. I guess no. She's in that enough.
Sure. But, you know, she's got a good goodbye, Mr. Foley.
Mm-hmm. Have I told you about that she was on the British version of Celebrity Big Brother once?
Oh, no.
And I'm the only person you can get that information from, by the way. I made it sound like I was the gatekeeper of that information. It's publicly available knowledge. You don't have to go through me. Yeah, and then about halfway through, they pulled a stunt on her that they put Jackie Stallone, Sly Stallone's mother, into the house about halfway through, and there's a famous moment that they bring in Jackie Stallone as like the surprise new housemate,
right?
And Bridget Nielsen just kind of does a double take and goes, "Jackie," like really over the top, and then Jackie Stallone, who is clearly about to say "Hello, Bridget" or something involving Bridget, has to respond to her going "Jackie," and so she confuses the two words and she ends up saying, "Yeah, Bracky." Look it up, it's an amazing moment. She was about to say Bridget, and then Bridget said Jackie, and she goes, "Yeah, Bracky," with her plastic surgery face. Well, she can't even form words anyway, but she's also stumbling over them.
Oh, man.
It's bad shit, though, because they were, like, doing crazy stuff, like, making, like, kind of, like, Abu Ghraib stuff, like, making Bridget Nielsen warm the toilet seat for Jackie Stallone to sit on it, and, like, really bad shit.
That's not good.
That no one should have to go through, and it's hard to see someone like Bridget Nielsen having to go through it, given that she not suffered at the hands of this family enough.
Enough, right.
Over the years.
I think it's kind of a bummer because we have Cobra and we have this movie and we have Red Sonja.
Oh yeah, Red Sonja.
But there's not, because of Stallone, who probably kind of blackballed her since they got divorced. You know, I think she had more to show us. Like, this movie shows me, and Rocky IV shows me, that she had talent, that she was good. I would have liked to have seen more of her.
She's kind of it's interesting because it's different because he went on to have a longer career, but it reminds me of how they kind of spotlight Mr. T in Rocky III. Like, look at this kind of curiosity.
Yeah, right.
This kind of almost circus-like figure. Like, she's kind of like this circus-tall, beautiful woman.
Right.
But she doesn't get her, she never gets her A-team, where she's able to kind of turn that into something sustained.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, that we're kind of towards the end of the movie, and I've got some vindication of your headcanon, because the note I wrote was, Rosewood and Taggart's independence is down to the influence of Foley. So they've gone through a transformation in these 2 short visits they've had with Axel Foley.
Sure, right.
So I think you're onto something with your headcanon there, because it crossed my mind too.
Thank you.
And then he goes back to Detroit, and then the next movie is once again burdened with somehow getting him back to, let's say, L.A. County, if not Beverly Hills.
Well, hang on, because I do want... I don't know. I find myself reveling in lots of small moments in this movie for some reason. And
no, for good reason. There are a lot of good small moments.
But when Lutz is trying to fire them all, and the mayor shows up, and Billy is saying, kiss my ass, and he's like, get your head out of your ass. And he says, you're fired. And the mayor says, hang on a second. He says, isn't that right? when Lutz says, you're fired. Hang on a second. Isn't that right? I think that's a really funny line.
Yeah.
I fucking think that's great.
Yeah, agreed.
All right.
So they screw the next film, and then we're done.
Well, hang on.
What else is there?
Inspector Todd is back. He's talking to the mayor on the phone. I like that.
We already had that idea that told us he was up and walking around, so that's all we needed, in the words of Michael Jordan.
I like what's Todd call to Paul Reiser, Mario Andretti Friedman?
Ah, nice.
Your secret undercover partner. Todd is complete gold in these movies. Except for 3, where they give him nothing to do but die.
So really just this movie. Because he's a photograph in Axel F. You mean this and the original, right?
This and the original.
The original, yeah. I agree. I think he's outstanding. It's good because if you're gonna have like a regional like fish out of water comedy, you need something to establish where he's coming from, and that's what Todd does. Yeah.
He can always give you that. What do you think about ending the movie on a bit of racism? Hey, who's that black guy?
Who says that?
When the owners of the home come back?
Oh, yes. I think it's fine within the context of the, the kind of bougie Beverly Hills satire, which actually we've not seen much of in this movie. There's been too many.
Just the one montage, the music montage. Yeah.
There's too high. So, I guess it makes sense in that context. But I remember thinking, I didn't kind of think about what they were saying, but I remember thinking they don't need to say anything. We can just see their reactions, and the film could be done. Or not even see their reactions. Like they could just arrive in the background as Eddie Murphy's leaving, and that's enough. We don't even need to know what they look like.
Right.
Just know that they've come home. Like, he could be driving away and you just see in the distance an exasperated guy with his hands in the air. That would do it.
Well, he's going to tell the boys to trust him and then give us his $1 million smile. Cut to credits. Why don't you give us a credit check?
Yeah. It's interesting. We talked about the Playboy Bunny / Madam, who is listed as herself. Hugh Hefner is also listed as himself, but those himself and herself are in quotes, as if they're suggesting neither of them live up to the way in real life to the way that they are represented in the movie, which I agree with. So, a character of Orvis. Do you remember the character of Orvis?
No.
Okay. Was played by a man called Tom Tiny Lister Jr.
Oh, I know who that is.
Who is that?
He's the guy who takes the he's the inmate that takes away the bomb clicker in The Dark Knight, in the scene that you hate, the barge scene.
Oh, that the the tall guy
Yeah.
with the eye.
Bald head. With the what?
He has like a stigmatism or something, or an albino
Yeah, maybe.
eye. At least in Dark Knight. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm just wondering. Well, and that goes to my point as well. So Tom Tiny Lister Jr. One of those is redundant. Tiny and Junior mean the same thing, and also one of them is ironic. Because he's called Tiny because he's so big. Does that mean the Junior's ironic as well, and he's actually senior?
No, I think he's the second Tiny Lister in his family.
That's a good point as well. Is he junior of just Lister or Tiny Lister?
Yeah.
That's it. So you've opened up an even bigger can of worms than the one I already had there. Does bad mean good? And to shake your booty mean to wiggle one's butt? ADR editor Dick Darling, which sounds like a porn star. I'm surprised we didn't see him somewhere in the Playboy Mansion.
Yeah.
Either that or a rockabilly star from the 1950s who became a porn star later.
Perfect.
Assistants to producers Ray Murphy Sr. and Ray Murphy Jr. Related crew members. I couldn't get verification on whether first assistant director Peter Bogart was part of the Bogart dynasty, though. I know that at least one Bogart son is a director, but I couldn't figure out if he was a Bogart or just a Bogart.
All right.
Catering, Tony's Food Service, and that once again is in quotes. So whenever they do that, it almost seems sarcastic.
Yeah.
Hear about Tony's work. It's like,
it was the
Tony's
worst food we ever had.
Oh my God, we went to Tony's Food Service, making the quotes in the air. By the way, Tony's Food Service will supply the food throughout all of these movies, all the way to Axel F.
Oh. I thought you were going to say to this podcast, like you made a phone call.
And I'd love it now if we end this movie on an ad for Tony's Food Service.
Yeah.
Do you like getting your food in quotation marks? Then you'll love Tony's Food Service. Don't buy wigs that come off at the wrong time. Maury's wigs never come off. Except when Robert De Niro's strangling you.
Yeah.
But the other and also, judging by all the Gene Hackman movies I've watched, Tony's Food Service supplied all the film sets from 1985 to about 1992.
Oh my.
Because he's in the credits. Tony's Food Service is in the credits of all of them. Playboy gets special thanks, as you would expect. But
sure.
There's a whole section of the credits devoted to the names of the playmates and models.
I noticed that.
Who the fuck cares? Apart from fucking...
I'm sure they do.
Guys jerking off in their apartments with Rambo First Blood Part 2 posters. And guns everywhere. Anyway, that's the end of my credit check.
All right. Well, anything left for you, sir?
No, that's all I wanted to say. It's a nice compact little movie.
It's a good fun movie.
It doesn't outstay its welcome.
Yeah.
Just long enough for what it needs to do and no more.
What more can you ask?
Well, you could ask more than this, but you can also be satisfied with what you got.
Very good, then. All that's left is for you to tell us what you think, ladies and gentlemen. You know what to do. You got to find us where you find us. The books, the grams, the skies. Not so much the X's. But you can if you like. I guess we're back on there. Are we back on there, Tom?
We were never off there. I just couldn't get into it.
Okay, fine.
Now I can get into it.
Are we, what is it when you're certified? Blue stamp or something?
Oh, no.
Blue check?
You have to pay Elon Musk a lot of money for that.
What a dick.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do that, or send an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. We think this is the best sequel in the series. We got to know what you know, or what you think, rather. So find us and tell us, please. When you hear us next, we'll be talking Beverly Hills Cop 3. Does that count as a point?
Yeah. Colon Axel in Wonderworld.
Yes. It's a real mess. All right.
We're through the looking glass now.
For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Schatz here of the How Dare You Awards. Like I said, we'll be back with Beverly Hills Cop 3. Say goodbye to everybody, Tom.
Fuck Rambo. So confident in extending this franchise, it starts a competition with some other 80s sequels.
Oh, good
You gotta
times.
love a movie that challenges Sylvester Stallone to a fight.
Yes.
And not just a street fight.
So funny, too.
Yeah.
The connections between this series and
Yeah.
what's Sly
They keep
Stallone.
coming. That's right.
I love it. I'm all on board for it. All right, we'll be back, everyone. Thank you for listening.